and welcome to the TheROCKATX online worship experience. You're getting ready to experience God on another level. Whatever you're seeking from God for your life is available for you as you praise, hear the word, and transform your situation. While you're worshiping with us, feel free to interact with our online ministers in the chat and share this broadcast with your friends and family so they can join you online. Also, make sure you subscribe and follow TheROCKATX on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram to stay connected to all The Rock is doing. Now, shake off the worries of the week and get ready to give God some praise. Service will begin soon.
And so if you can imagine, at Hebron, he is anointed king. And he's like, I think all the years worked out. I believe we might have something working. I didn't know I was ever going to be king, but now I'm the king. And so he says, now we've got to take the capital city. So in chapter 5, David's quest for Jerusalem begins, and he takes the city. In chapter 5, after 15 years, he becomes king. Now he takes back the city of David, the city of Jerusalem, and then he defeats the Philistines in chapter 5. Man, his stuff is about to take off. And then, listen, and David says, man, okay, now I've got the city. What else can I do for God? And he looks around and he says, wait a minute. The ark is not here. God's presence is not here. So in chapter 6, you guys, he says, oh, wait a minute. And he brings the presence of God back into Jerusalem. He is so happy that he calls a city festival, and he feeds everyone, and he is rejoicing, and he is dancing and twirling and everything else, even though he has interpersonal problems. Micah mad, he don't care, because he's like, man, this thing is popping. It's taking off. I'm the king. Now we're in the city. Now we got I brought the presence of God back in here, and so he's seeing this thing. The runway is built. The plane is built. And then in chapter 7, David says, "Wait a minute, man. This is so good." He said, "I brought God's presence back in here, but I never asked God, what can I do for you?" So he says, man, I'm on the road. God, what do you want? He said, why could I have a house and you not have a house? So David in chapter 7 says, I'm gonna build God a house. So he takes on this major vision. He said, my vision was never just to be king. He said, but I got bigger things in mind. So I brought the presence of God in, and now what I want to do is I want to build a house for God. So in chapter 7, he's so excited because now he has this new vision of building a permanent temple for God. No longer being a tabernacle, but now a huge temple that's God's place. And David said, this is going to be my life's work. I've done this. And then in chapter 8, he said, now I've got to pull together, at the very end of chapter 8, he says, I got to pull together an administration. Because we got to pull this whole thing together. We are finally here. And then in the beginning of chapter 9, after all that work, he looks around the table and he says, is there anybody from the house of Saul and Jonathan? He looked around. There was an empty seat. Is there anybody? Wait. And I want to talk to you. For the next few minutes, I just want to talk to you about Mephibosheth. Because the question is, are you Mephibosheth? I'm not going to be accusatory. We're just going to talk a little bit about Mephibosheth. But I want you, as we're talking about Mephibosheth, to just self-evaluate. Are you? And I'm making sense. because David is looking for Mephibosheth. David says, is there anybody? Is there anybody? Anybody from the house of Saul? Why would you not be there? Why wasn't Mephibosheth there? Can I say first reason? Look, reason number one. Somebody said reason number one. Reason number one. See, the reason number one, and I want you to once again to ask yourself these questions. Mephibosheth wasn't there because of his family history. Mephibosheth understood that it was customary that when a new king came on the throne, it was customary to ensure his longevity that he would take the time to make sure that he would go and find anybody who had the lineage of the last or previous king, and then to kill them, because the idea was if they lived, they would say at some point that it's really, this kingdom really belongs to me. I was watching, I share with people, I was watching a show about river otters a couple of weeks ago, and in the river otters, they were going down. They were on the rivers in the middle of a city, and they were talking about this queen river otter who had an army of 21 river otters behind her. She is a matriarch, and she is leading them. And they talked about how long it took her to become the matriarch, and how she had to work her way up the hierarchy. But then her greatest battle was then she had to go and kill the other queen who was leading the other army of river otters to gain that territory. And she had been ruling and reigning for several years, and she had made one mistake, though. She had left the daughter of the former queen. She thought that she had killed her, but the daughter swam away, recovered, and spent some years recuperating and then building her own army. And now they were coming back in to take over the territory that her mother had, because she felt like it belonged to her. Jonathan understood, David understood, and Mephibosheth understood that it was tradition to kill every one of the sons, and anybody who's connected to them genealogically, so that we don't have anybody rising up. Am I making sense, somebody? Now, why? So Mephibosheth understood this, which means this, that sometimes, Mephibosheth, you're not at the table because you say to the king, you don't know my history. I'm from people who ain't never done anything. I'm from people who have these kind of issues, and you just got to know how we are. And even though you're looking for me at the table, you don't want me at the table, because I don't have that DNA lineage of leadership. I don't have that lineage. I was getting quiet in here. I don't have that DNA lock of people from my family who lead anything. And so I don't even know why you invite me to the meeting. And when I come to the meeting, all I'm going to do is sit down and wait to be told what to do. Because my family history says this ain't what we do. Mephibosheth? 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 I'm looking for you. So reason number two. Somebody said reason number two. Now, reason number two, why is Mephibosheth not at the table? And this is interesting because reason number two is this, personal trauma. Some people are not at the table because of personal trauma, what they've been through. What do you mean? What do you mean? Now I love the story because in 2 Samuel chapter 4, verse 4, it tells the story of Mephibosheth. 2 Samuel chapter 4, verse 4, it says, Jonathan, Saul's son, had a son who was lame at his feet. So now Mephibosheth was known because he had the inability to walk. He was lame. But he wasn't born with this disorder. He wasn't born, this was not something that he was born with. In fact, I want to help you here. His personal trauma was caused by somebody who was working to protect him. When David became king, Saul was killed, Jonathan was killed, and then five of Saul's sons were all killed. So the caretaker for Mephibosheth understood that Mephibosheth was next in line. So what she did out of care for him was to run and flee to protect him. That means that sometimes the people that have tried to protect you have really traumatized you. The people that have told you, let me tell you about church. Let me tell you how not to trust nobody. Let me tell you how you got to take care of yourself. Let me tell you how you can't let nobody tell you what to do. Let me tell you how you got to look out for you. Am I making sense? So literally, Mephibosheth was 5 years old, and the caretaker is running out trying to make sure he's good, but in her care to protect him, she drops him. And when she drops him, she literally caused him to be lame. So have you been traumatized by somebody's good intentions? Mama told you, don't ever trust nobody. Daddy told you, always have some money on the side. Uncle told you, sister told you, cousin told you, always make sure you got this, that, and the other. And so God can't ever really get in touch with you because you got that part of you that's off limits to God. And you feel good about it because it's all you know. Because, listen, you fail to recognize that you can be traumatized by people trying to protect you. It's quiet in here now. Mephibosheth, only 5 years old. So now, number one, it was the family history. Number two, it was personal trauma. So literally, that trauma then caused him to be lame. Now, can I help you with this? What blessed me is this. The trauma caused him to be lame. So it gave him a personal injury. But he had grown and was no longer in pain because of the injury. You can be dysfunctional, but not in pain. He had learned how to operate in life. Am I making sense? That makes sense. See, some of us we don't call it trauma because we've learned how to live life with it. Am I making sense? So some people are functional alcoholics. Some people are functional addicts. But many of us are functionally traumatized. And you know it because you good as long as they don't touch that button. And when you're challenged there, something on the inside rises up. I'm making sense. And no one around you even knows what's going on. But all of a sudden, you're not at the meeting. All of a sudden, you ain't got nothing else to say. All of a sudden, your arms cross. You ain't left the meeting, you just left the meeting. Am I making sense? Yeah. And you argue in your mind, I'm here. I'm good. You can't say I'm not here. I'm right here. I'm taking notes. You can see me, but you don't realize now what we're dealing with to traumatize you. So you're no longer present. Listen, the chair is filled, but the space is empty. Talk about Mephibosheth. I'm going to talk about you. I'm making sense. Now that means that someone's overprotection is your worst enemy. I'm going to say it again, somebody. Overprotection is your worst enemy. Let me tell you how to deal with Dr. Moody. When he starts leg shaking, don't say nothing. Just be quiet. Just be quiet. Now listen. You don't understand that you're traumatizing that person. Because they should have been brave enough. When I said, "What do you think?" I literally meant, "What do you think?" But now ethically, you're holding back what you think. So that means that we're not coming together with the best solution because you're holding back information that can fix the problem or give a perspective to the problem. Even if I'm going to say this, even if it's not appreciated at the moment. I'm not going to say nothing. They're going to do what they want to do anyway. They ain't going to listen to me. Some of my best ideas have been rebuked, shot down openly. And then 5 years later, they say, "I was thinking about this." Sometimes, as an ethical follower, you got to learn how to have that good idea shot down because it's not the right time. And when it finally is time for it to come to fruition, then you celebrate it as if it just came at that moment. I'm trying to help you, Mephibosheth. Listen, why do you believe you were called to the table? You thought you were called to the table just to sit there and look? If we called you to the table, Mephibosheth, then what do we want? I want your opinion. I don't say, listen, I don't want your way. I want your opinion. And sometimes, but your opinion can help us to make the best choice of the way to go. Am I making sense? Making sense. Somebody said overprotection. That means stop talking to people and saying, "Shh, don't say nothing." Because if you say something, we're going to be here another 30 minutes. If you don't say nothing, then he's going to be tired. He's going to fuss for a minute, and then he's going to move on. Am I making sense? I'm talking about Mephibosheth. Of course. Number three, are we on number three? Number one, family history. Number two, personal trauma. Are y'all with me? Number three, personal circumstances.
Thank you for worshiping with us today. If you're in need of prayer or someone to talk to, our online ministers are available for you right now in the chat. And we invite you to join us again for our extraordinary worship services every Sunday at 10:30 a.m., Sunday at 4 p.m., and Wednesdays at 7:30 p.m. Central, where Dr. Moody teaches how to understand the Bible and you can get your biblical questions answered. We look forward to connecting with you and ask that you subscribe to TheROCKATX on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and Instagram to stay connected to all The Rock is doing. Also, you can connect with us through our website at TheROCKATX.org. Again, thank you for worshiping with us, and be blessed.